All right. Well, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Advice from a Call Center Geek, the Call Center and Contact Center podcast, where we try to bring you some actionable items to take back in your contact center, improve the overall quality, improve the agent experience, hopefully improve the customer experience as well. Today, we're going to try to improve your technology stack, some speech analytics, talk about AI. We have with us just an absolute pro in the industry with an amazing background that I'm going to let him kind of I think he can probably do it more justice than me, but with background with Alexa, a deep understanding of AI, speech analytics, agent assist. Really excited to have Ashish Nagar with us today, for the CEO of Level AI. And Ashish, why don't you just kind of give a quick, your background's fascinating to me, with the experiences that you've had and how you've been able to take those experiences and kind of bring them into the contact center world. With natural language and AI kind of merged together. So welcome. And can we just get a quick, 30-second background bio on you, please?
Sure. Hey, thank you so much for having me, Thomas. I'm a big fan of the show, and
Thank you.
as you know, big fan of all your work. So really appreciate you having me here. Yeah, I'm not a contact center geek like you. I was an AI geek before I got into the contact center space a few years ago. Since then, I've been loving it. So as you mentioned before Level AI, I was a product leader in Amazon's Alexa team, and one of the projects I was working on was making Alexa talk to humans for 20 minutes nonstop on any social topic. Now, it seems, when we talk to Alexa for, asking weather or any simple sports question, it's a simple question answering machine.
Mm-hmm.
And I can report after trying it for multiple years, along with, leading researchers in the world, we are still in the 1 to 2 minute mark. So these problems are highly challenging. And before Alexa, I was doing, multiple startups in Silicon Valley in this space, and really excited to talk to you here. And one of the reasons I started Level AI, because we were both seeing the limitations of this kind of natural language understanding technology, but also the huge promise of what this could do for businesses, and especially for customer service teams. And we thought that not a lot of, frankly, current companies were doing justice to the power of this technology, and the rest is history. Yeah.
Well, I think that is an awesome lead into kind of my first question, because anybody who follows the podcast or follows my content knows I'm not an anti-AI guy. Like, you'd be crazy to think, anti-AI, but I think we overuse it in the industry.
Yeah.
Right. I think so many people, when we go to Call Center Week, and, I know Level AI is there, and every booth everywhere, talks about AI. I'd love to hear from you, and just, let's start on this AI topic. What is kind of your definition of it, right? What is your definition of AI, and maybe how it relates to the contact center?
Yeah, and I think that's such an important point, Thomas. And this is almost our pet peeve. So we want to demystify AI, take off the buzzwords almost for all your viewers and for other leaders in the contact center. So AI is a very broad term. It essentially means machines or computers' ability to mimic human intelligence, right? That's artificial intelligence. It's a very broad word. So you see applications of it in self-driving cars. You see applications of it in medical science in terms of detecting tumors. But it comes to the contact center or customer service, there is a specific branch within artificial intelligence called natural language processing and natural language understanding. And then there's a third piece of speech to text transcription. And if you look at that piece, and I have a slide there of how Alexa works, and we can talk about that. Maybe if you, so if I go all the way to that, so if you see AI in the contact center, I would think of it very similar to how a Siri or Alexa works. There are three pieces to it, which is the speech to text part, which is used for transcription essentially. The second part is, let's say this is a simple query. What's the weather in Litchfield Park, Arizona? And I test this park, right? And then the second piece is taking that sentence apart into keywords, which is the natural language processing part of it. And then the third piece is, what's the relationship between these words? What are we talking about? Are we talking about Arizona, the state only, or actually the weather at a particular state? Are we talking about weather of Arizona in general? What's the relationship with Litchfield Park there? That's key. And I would almost humbly propose that most of contact center AI is stuck in the first two, which is speech to text, right? Do some sentiment analysis on top, and then give a bunch of keywords. And the key part in human language understanding is this NLU part, which is what the hell is a customer calling about? What are they complaining about? What was their escalation about? If they're are they returning a product or are they buying a product, right? Are they returning multiple products and so on and so forth, right? All of us understand in customer service, it's about really what the request is. And so our view is that AI in the contact center should be about deep understanding of human language. Intent understanding is one problem with an AI. There are multiple other problems: understanding topics, understanding in real time how the conversation is going. And so we push our customers and prospects and everyone we talk to ask, every salesperson, every vendor, are you doing natural language understanding? And if so, what problems within that are you solving, right? Because if someone says, yeah, we do transcription, sentiment analysis, and text mining, that's not enough in 2022. That was enough in 2010, but not in 2022.
Hey, Ashish, and I know we're going to get into an analytics piece of this, but I think a good question here is where do you see, tone coming into play, right? So again, understanding sentiment, and not just understanding sentiment from keyword analysis, but actually understanding the tone of the customer or how they're saying words.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's a great point, Thomas. We can take this slide off, but that's totally agree with you. And on the sentiment side as well, as you said, there are two parts to it. One is how someone spoke it. But all of you and I know, my spouse can say pretty great things and pretty mean things to me in a very flat tone.
Right.
If she's not happy, I know just by looking at her, she's not happy. But what I'm getting to is language is really important. So you can have tonal variations and detect that and voice variations. But what language are you actually using? So combining the language intelligence along with the speech modeling or the tone or acoustics modeling is what we propose to our customers as how you should think about
the way to go.
A very simple example of this is in positive sentiment. A lot of our customers have this ask us in the contact center space, hey, can you guys do sentiment trends, right? Which is the call started with the negative sentiment. And then towards the end of it, we want to see if it was resolved. Was someone happy, or did our customer service agents did a good job or not? There is a lot of nuance to this, Thomas. So we often, our response often is maybe. And you're like, why? This is a simple thing. I'll give you an example. Everyone says at the end of the call, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for doing this, right? Or every agent says, was I able to help you today? And even if a person is not happy with the service, they often end up saying, thank you so much. I got it. Right?
Yeah, right.
Right. And you can be sarcastic, you can be anxious, you can be angry, or you can be actually grateful with the same set of words. Right?
No doubt.
That's why human language is so complex. And that's why, and that's how we think about it. So identifying negative and average sentiment is easier. Positive sentiment is harder. It's not just simple charts going up and down.
I think that's really, I've never thought of that, but I think that makes absolute sense, that negative sentiment, because you normally don't fake being positive when you're negative, but sarcasm and that can be viewed as negative when it's not. So that's kind of interesting to think about. Huh. All right. I have so much stuff to get with you. So, we talk about, again, AI, contact center. I think we can all, look out 20, 30 years, maybe even 10 years to where, natural language processing and understanding is really starting to take over, even from a voice standpoint, right? We're heading down that road. And if anybody thinks we're not, I think, you're probably a little naive. Harder, though, is where are we going in the short term from an AI standpoint, say 24, 36, maybe even up to 5 years. What do you see as some of the huge differences and changes from a contact center specific standpoint in the short term, not looking, out too far?
Yeah. So for your viewers, your practitioners, I would say, what use cases would open up for your users over the next 2 to 5 years? So first of all, things like, and we'll talk about analytics, but deeper view into what the voice of the business is, what the voice of the customer is. We will be able to even further get a very deep view on why customers are reaching out to us, way beyond word clouds, way beyond issue detection, why customers are reaching out, and also what those customer journeys look like. Why
Hmm.
did they reach out today, or even why did they reach out a few months ago? And even within a conversation, what was the different reasons they came in with, and what are the relationships of those reasons? So that's a big thing which will change. The second part is, I'll talk about underlying technology, but I want to talk about use cases first because there's a
I
practitioner's
love it.
audience,
No,
right?
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one thing. The second part is when we talk about real-time agent assist. Now, the solutions we see, not level AIs, but the solutions we sometimes we see in the space are very simplistic. They look for keywords and a bunch of phrases and detect things. I think that technology will become 10x better. I think with solutions like level AI, it's already 10x better, but we will even improve it 10x in the next year or two. How would you do that? In a conversation, there's a lot of context and memory. What do I mean by that? Let me unpack that for a second. You and I started chatting about, you know, one topic, and then we move to where is AI headed, and then we'll talk about something else. Maybe towards the end of the call, offline, we'll talk about our kids and your job
Hmm.
and your weekend
Right.
plans. Humans talk about a lot of things, but if you see modern agent assist solutions, they look up episodically at, customer said this, let me show you an article. Customer said that, let me show you an article. Can we model context and history and give the machine some memory, right? That's the other piece. So deeper view into analytics, giving the machine memory, or giving computers memory of what happened in the entire conversation. Now, if we give machines memory, the third use case is, can we chart customer journeys, right?
Hmm.
Because, as I said, hey, you came in talking about, if we sell to a financial services customer, you came in talking about credit card inquiry, but we also have this checking product or savings account product,
Hmm.
which you talked about, sort of. And then an analytics team can look at that and say, like, hey, these are the customer journeys which are premium customers typically have, right? So the third is customer journey, and the fourth, I would say, is there's this new field within AI which is called natural language generation, right? So we talked about natural language processing, we talked about natural language understanding, and then natural language generation, which is machines' ability or computers' ability to generate human-like language. So how does that impact? Imagine if an agent could auto finish, a machine could auto complete the notes for an agent, like literally
Hmm.
generate the language. I went through the entire conversation, and here's what I think are the most important parts of it, right? Automatically generate the key issues which happened in the conversation.
Hmm.
And that's another modern space. So the four things: much deeper analytics, memory to the conversation, real-time context, and natural language generation. Those are the four things which I feel in the next 2 years you will see a lot of motion on. And I'm sorry if I went to the geek end of this,
No,
but happy to sort of dive deep on any of
I'm,
that.
I'm that's super exciting. I always talk about here, with new products, right? Especially in the BPO space, right? BPOs, technology is great, but we can't just go get a piece of technology because we think it's cool. There has to be some type of ROI, and analytics for me is the largest, the biggest sense, I guess, segment of investment that I see making because of all the things that you just said, right? To not just have our customer service reps be, people say, a butt in a seat, which probably isn't appropriate, but just sitting there taking calls,
Yeah, yeah,
but,
yeah.
but generating this data, right? That
Yeah,
can be used by organizations, that there's so many things our customers are saying, and to be able to actually, we're starting to now be able to use that, but to take it to the level that you're saying, I think is super exciting, and will just a whole customer experience kind of nuance and change will be happening, even outside of the call center because of the insights that we're getting. Super cool.
absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, I want to get real nerdy here now. I
Okay.
think we've been kind of nerdy. But can you talk to people, or talk to all the listeners, all the viewers? There's a lot of people who maybe are a little bit newer in the space, but when people say speech analytics, Like, can you talk, how does that happen, right? So we know kind of the word cloud, or kind of how that, maybe talk through that, and then maybe talk about how you see it maybe a little bit differently, and how you guys are trying to do kind of that analytic platform that kind of really everybody's kind of the hot topic for everyone.
Absolutely. So maybe if you can, I have a couple of slides for that, I talk through those as we speak. But yeah, starting with this one. So I mentioned this already, but if you look at the speech analytics part, right? The first part of this is the speech to text engine, because if we cannot transcribe the audio, the voice audio call, or the voice signal itself, we don't have a starter. But the second part is where the word clouds come from, like the bane of our existence, which is these word clouds of, right? Which is this breaking language into constituent elements, right? Now, the challenge for most contact center leaders is that that's where these technologies stop, right? So I'll give you an example, and this is a very like a simple example which we talk about this a lot. Let's say in all of our business people, someone calls in to cancel an account. It could be a credit card company, a healthcare company, a furniture company, or return something. Now, if you do classic speech analytics, right? If someone says, I want to cancel my account. The problem is, and if I make a word cloud of the three phrases, cancel my account, right? I will be wrong 2 out of 3 times. I'll be wrong 2 out of 3 times. Why do I say that? Because someone says, I want to cancel an account. That's right. But someone says, I do not want to cancel my account. That would also trigger, right? And the third person says, I would never cancel my account, just want it paused, or something like that, right?
Right.
That would also trigger. So traditional speech analytics, in our humble opinion, gives a lot of false positives, right? Because it's keyword and phrase based, right? And every business has hundreds of these scenarios. So in our view, and then the other part of speech analytics, which we hear often from customers, is this issue of sentiment, right? So they give you a word cloud and they give you sentiments, negative, neutral, positive, and some charts going up and down. But again, we think that's not enough. What you should be, what modern leaders need now these days is real-time issue detection. What's actually happening in my contact center? Tell that to me in real time. Which issues, which topics did my agents perform well on? Where do they actually need training, right? Can I power my product, sales, compliance team, marketing teams with this data? So if I have accurate data of how many people are looking to cancel the account, guess what? I can create a marketing campaign around it. I can feed it to my sales team and say like, hey, these people are about to churn, help, right? So modern, call it conversational analytics almost, not just speech analytics, or conversational analytics, or conversational intelligence. We've started to hear that from a lot of our customers as well, is where you can have what we call semantic intelligence or meaning-based intelligence into the contact center, right? And if we can do that, we can power modern contact centers in a meaningful way. And guess what? This is a case study which we did, and in general about how modern speech analytics can be better. Because if you really truly detect cancel my account in a nice way, we think it's sometimes 4 to 10x better than just keyword matching and phrase matching. 4 to 10x better. So I want to just challenge your audience to think about when they are taking those reports to their product teams, their sales teams, their compliance teams, and struggling with the false positive and negatives. Your podcast is Call Center Geek, and I'm positioning it as like modern technologies can do much better. 4 to 10x better in terms of recall and accuracy. Does that answer your question? I'm just
that's really good. That's really good. And I kind of want to get back to something that I think all of us are waiting for, and for more of a general use, but real-time sentiment is something that most call centers and contact centers maybe is a dream for them, right? So to be able to see some type of dashboard, or to see something where you can see a call going south, or you can see a rep that's turning a call around, or you can see an irritated customer and not have to be, clicking and trying to monitor everybody. Where do you see that, as a viable product, and how soon do you see that? And just kind of what are your thoughts on just real time sentiment for being for real?
Yeah, so I think that's already here. A lot of our customers and we know competitors who have similar products are using it, and I
Yes.
think it's a very powerful technology, both for training new agents, onboarding them rapidly, helping customers in helping customers, and also it gives unmatched ability for managers and team leads to jump in if a call is going south, and especially in this remote environment with COVID, you have
Yeah.
hundreds of agents all over the country, and you don't know which one to focus on. If you have real-time sentiment and the ability to sort of jump in into a conversation, that's really, really powerful. Now, I would go even further to say, um, I think the vision there for contact center leaders, what we discuss with these leaders is, we can have real time sentiment, but also real time conversation tagging. And what do I mean by that? So let's
Mhm.
say if a customer says, "I'm super unhappy," right, and that's real time sentiment, or we can do tonal
Yeah.
detection or word detection, but we can also do real time conversation intelligence, which is, uh, I am really curious. So I have this credit card. I just bought a home, and I'm wondering if you have a home mortgage product, right?
Mhm.
Now, if I'm a bank, that kind of intelligence, if I can convert 1% more or half a percent more of my current customers and get them into a mortgage product, that's a huge revenue lift.
Yeah.
And that's how we make contact centers from cost centers to revenue centers, right? And so if I can now, now, unfortunately, I am the credit card agent, right, taking that call, and suddenly someone asked me about home mortgage. I was like, yeah, I'll put you on your CRM that you were curious about home mortgage,
Yeah.
and
Flag it
then
maybe.
it
Right.
gets lost. It gets lost. But what if we can do that in real time? If there's a home mortgage inquiry happening right here, and an expert could jump in, for
Yeah.
example. So, and that also is the foundation for real-time agent assist technology. And so we think of in terms of real-time sentiment, which is really, really important, real-time conversation tagging, and then we can also talk about real-time agent assist and how we think about that. But those two, tagging and sentiment, I think are very possible. Yeah.
I think this is a great bridge or transition to QA. Um,
Hmm.
for me, I kind of see this technology not taking maybe headcount to a certain extent away from the reps, but I do see headcount going away from a QA staff, right? I think the
Yeah.
technology is now where almost every provider out there is basically saying if they're offering some type of analytics or AI product, hey, you can listen right to 100% of your calls, right? And some of that is
Yeah.
BS, some of that's right. Um, but you can't doubt the impact that this technology is having on QA. Can you
Mhm.
talk about where you see that from a kind of an AI infused QA platform, right, where it's
Yeah.
less agent scoring and more of the AI or the technology doing a lot of the work?
Yeah, and if you don't mind, Thomas, you mentioned some of that is BS. What part of, like, I'm curious, in your experience, what did you find as like, yeah,
Well,
that
I
that
mean,
can't be right?
listening to 100% of the calls and having my reps sit there and really be scoring and taking a percentage, is a little bit different than basically saying you don't need to do that, right? So many products
Yeah.
are your QA goes away. Which it doesn't yet. I think it will, right? I think that
Yeah.
there's some technology there, but it's again that's kind of the overuse of where AI is for a call center that has and maybe that's a little bit better for a huge 10,000 seat center, right? That maybe can't get to
Yeah.
or needs this huge. But if most of us and most listeners here are probably under 1,000 seats, right?
Yeah.
So to have that aspect of you're listening to everything. No, I need to be able to score this, and especially for me for a
Yeah.
client, how do I tell my client that hey, I listened to these and these are good, and that's
Yeah.
kind of where it gets into a little
No,
hairy for me.
and I couldn't agree with you more. Like, I've talked about in the last 20, 25 minutes, all the promise of AI and where it's headed and how we feel it's such a bright future. But at the same time, I could not agree with you more. It's so important to be realistic.
Right.
And working with the customers to partner on not selling the moon and being realistic on the powers of AI. And I think it's really, really powerful. I'll give you a very simple example. We were looking at a QA rubric, and there was a question: Did the agent ask probing questions, right? And how did they do? No AI can, find that if
Figure that
the
out.
agent asks probing questions out or not. And it's actually a pretty good question. In our sales team, we talk about asking good discovery questions and so on. And so it's very, I think it's just wrong. Right? You said you use BS. I just said it's wrong to promise that we can be able to fix it. But at the same time, I do think where modern quality assurance teams will go is that machines will augment their productivity 60, 70, 80%, right? And then a lot of their capacity would go in actually work coaching and guiding the agents on value-added things, as opposed to all day listening to these calls, right? Machines can augment their productivity, make it 5x faster, automate 70, 80% of their work. It will not be 100%. That's our and if anyone who says 100% all done,
right,
that you use the word.
But I think too, this goes back to what you said too. I mean, with we talk about real-time sentiment, but even real-time keyword analysis, right? So having QA, they're not randomly hearing calls, but if they hear if a rep swears, or even if a customer swears, or if there's certain phrases that you don't want from a disclosure standpoint, or if there's a disclosure that has to be read perfectly and it's not, things are being able to be picked up from that way. I think that is super powerful. But from the point of scoring things, I'm still not there yet, but I think that's where it really, especially a supervisor on the floor, right, who maybe is not a QA person, but they're monitoring. So they're taking the randomness out of a call center manager is huge for me, right? To pinpoint their time into actually helping a rep, making a product better, getting information, instead of just wasting literally 60 to 70% of their day trying to find a problem.
Absolutely. And so, and that's such a great point you mentioned, Thomas. So if we look at the modern QA or the QA flow itself, there is the piece around you getting hundreds of thousands of calls and identifying which calls to QA. There's the piece around the actual QA process of reviewing it and then scoring it. We think AI can augment all three workflows. Which calls to QA, when you are QAing, how do you do it? And actually scoring. We have an amazing auto score product, and we can auto score on a bunch of different customer rubric questions, right? But and sometimes actually, we can auto score up to 100%. But sometimes you can, but we never say all the time 100%, because again, that one of the challenges with any new technology is we like to be realistic and over deliver, right? And then the other thing I would say on the sort of QA bit, as you mentioned, on highlighting those moments, the same, we don't have to do a keyword phrase based thing. We can do true conversation intelligence, where again, irrespective of keywords or phrase used, we can identify situations which are happening, and that is huge. Like we are able to get again 5 to 10x better QA results because of foundational conversational intelligence there. And that's where AI, that's what we want to shout from the rooftops. Of what you should expect from your systems, right? But and have your QA team train and coach and reduce the churn of agents, right? Because guess what? Agents which are better trained, which get more feedback, churn less. And I'm sure a lot of your listeners have a churn problem in their contact centers. In this environment where hiring is so hard and inflation is high and things like that, it's hard to retain. And the best way to retain talent is give them lots of quality feedback and work with them, which modern solutions enable.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. This is really, really, really interesting. I don't want to say the last topic, but because I think it's kind of intertwined. But again, speech analytics has become kind of I don't want to say a must-have, but right, a lot of call centers have now this technology. The newer thing now, right, that is starting to become more mainstream is agent assist, which we hear just so much about now. again, can you, like you did with analytics? And again, I think it's just really interesting because a lot of us, a lot of listeners don't really understand how this stuff works. And to have someone like you on here is really cool. Can you just kind of explain how Agent Assist works? And then again, maybe what the norm is and then where you see it going, or how maybe you guys are doing a little differently?
Great question. So how does it work? There are 3 or 4 key components. One is, let's start with a voice phone calls, which is the hardest actually for Agent Assist, but that's the most often used, right? So the first step in that is that we need to have what's called a live audio stream from your CCAS provider or your on-prem telephony vendor. Five9 has a great live audio stream product. Twilio has one. Most CCAS players have. So that live audio stream is giving us basically a real-time stream of what's happening between the call. Once you have that, now that same process I talked about, speech to text, natural language processing, natural language understanding. So in real time, we have to transcribe it and then almost run a Google search on it, on the query which we get, the text which we get, on what the hell is this person talking about, right? The 3 steps: live audio stream, speech to text, and then language understanding. Now, and then maybe the 4th step is what they're talking about, then link it to either your knowledge center or your coaching and guidance tool or some kind of like an FAQ or step-by-step guiding mechanism, and feed that output back into the agent's single pane view. So those are the 4 steps again: live audio stream, speech to text, language understanding, linking it to the knowledge source and bringing it back. Now the challenge here is there are 2 or 3 key challenges, Thomas. One is the real-time part of it. Guess what? People need this entire experience in less than a few seconds, right? So a call has to go in and the conversation is happening on the fly. We should be able to help the agent without in real time before the customer goes on the next topic, essentially, right? That's a few seconds. That's one challenge. The second challenge is relevance. That is again where I started this conversation. Most agent assist tools, and this is my pet peeve, they say, oh, we show you the related article. They look for that keyword and they look up an article with that keyword and show you that back. That doesn't work because, as I said, if you just look, someone says, I do not want to cancel my account, they still show cancel my account article, right? Any article with the word cancel in it gets shown up. So that's the other challenge. How do we maintain relevance of the content which we are showing? Because guess what? Our agents are working in such high stress situations in such a small time window of 6 minutes, 7 minutes, 8 minutes for the entire call. If you show them garbage content, they'll be like, man, what the hell? First of all, this is popping up in my screen. Second, 2 out of 3 times is wrong.
Right.
Like, can you get this off my screen? Right. And the third part is, can you link all the knowledge in the organization? So, this is the part I talk about. Even if you're showing the knowledge, the right articles, but in large organizations or in any organizations, some knowledge sits in support articles, some sits in, Lessonly or some LMS system, some sits in internal wiki docs. So being able to integrate all of that into the agent response, and then I keep on adding, I can talk about this one, but then making it omni-channel. So you have to be able to do this over phone calls, emails, and jacks. And those are slightly different in terms of how you process it. We have solved it for all channels and each of these problems. Now, again, and I would still say, having said that, this is a space, real-time agent assist is a space where research, and you asked me this question of where do you want to see the space in the next 2 to 3 years. This is a space where as technology evolves, improves, the product quality will continue to improve tremendously. Because we will be able to have things like, context modeling, memory of the conversation, and a bunch of other things, right? But that will affect everything else. But I do think for your listeners, it is important to ask these questions, like, hey, what is your latency? How soon will the agent get it? What is the quality of stuff which you show, and what's the accuracy around it, right? And how often do my agent have to repeat something to be able to see it, or is it like right? Because sticking AI on a deck is easy. This is the next level. No pun intended.
Yeah, right. Hey, I'm going to ask you before we wrap this up to put your sales hat on. All right.
Okay.
And I have a lot of people that especially on LinkedIn that ask me to demo their agent assist product, right? Just how to, and I will have the conversation with them. I think, and I know there are agent assists being used by a lot of BPOs out there. So for me, I see the difficulty of having, maybe 40 or 50 different clients with different knowledge bases, right? And having to set that up is there a specific use case that you think is the ideal scenario for this, right? Or would you say overall, it kind of works for everything? How do you feel like if you go to sell that, is there a specific kind of channel or business or use case that works best?
Yeah, that's such a great question, Thomas. So BPOs are a challenging environment because of that specific reason you mentioned. And now, if you have one customer who has a larger footprint, and they are the only ones looking for it, and obviously we can do multi-tenant installs and things like that's not a problem. It is just from your perspective as the leader of the operation, you are you'll be managing these sort of multiple, there's no other way. There are 40 different knowledge sources,
Right.
right?
Correct.
So organizations which are like financial services companies, insurance companies, healthcare providers, uh, travel companies, uh, which have complex products. Financial services is such a simple example. They have so many different products and things keep on changing, like mortgage rates keep on changing every day.
Right.
They launch products really fast. High tech companies, they launch products really fast. And what are they supposed to do? Train agents every day on the new launch, or give them an agent assist product which agents can use on the fly to answer customer questions, right? We had a customer, we had a potential customer, a very large, I won't name them, but they're a very large mobility company, really, really large, right? Rideshare company. And their SVP told us that, before this kind of technology, they would have promotions every day, every week for their product. And they would send a PDF doc every morning to the contact center. It's like, hey, these are the promotions for today. And then then they would went to then they would send it to team leads, and team leads would make post-its out of it for every agent and stick it on the agent desktop. Is like, remember, this is your promotion for today.
Yep. Yeah.
Now you don't need to do that. Agent Assist can do it, and simply sitting in headquarters, set it up. It pops in the real time. So for those kinds of businesses, complex, dynamic changing, it's really hard. It's really useful. I would say for very simple businesses like e-commerce or something where with just simple returns are coming through or simple order statuses and things like that, if the complexity is not high enough, then it's not, I wouldn't say it's a top priority. Then quality and analytics is definitely top priority there. Yeah.
You know what, where this would have worked. And to be honest, I mean, in 2019, agent assist for me really wasn't even on the radar. But when we went through COVID, we got a lot of the states 211 work, right? So basically it was their non-emergency emergency lines. And literally when you're going through, you could start with the governor makes an announcement at 9 o'clock in the morning. The mayor makes one at 10. The president makes one at 11. And every single time, right? What happened with the lockdown or the schools or something changed. And it was a nightmare. I think that would have been an absolutely ideal use case for agent
Absolutely.
assist.
So we spun funny you mentioned it. We spun a small COVID helpline when there was massive unemployment, and people and the government was helping with unemployment relief and so on. But those things were also changing so rapidly. How much am I eligible for? When will my check happen? And every state was different. So we used Agent Assist in a big way to support our partners in New York. We partnered with the New York State on helping their call center agents with this in real time. And that was, you're exactly right, because every hour things were changing
so fast. Yeah, it was insane. So I could totally see. And I guess I never thought of that for a use case of it. All right, second to last question. We talked about all these use cases for AI and where things are moving from an analytic standpoint and natural language processing and understanding. Do you see things that AI just doesn't work at, right, or doesn't work with? What are some of those things that?
A lot of them, yeah, a lot of them, and that's why we are breaking new ground every day in this space. We are very excited, but at the same time, we realistic. So many things where AI do not work. I talked about this context problem, right? Like a customer calls in and talks about 5 different issues. How did they happen? What were the relationships between those? And these are 30-40 minute conversations, and mapping them in a reasonable way, it's actually a reasonably hard problem.
Mm-hmm.
Sarcasm is another one. You can say it in a flat out, okay, got it. That was really helpful. Right? Humans can understand that the eye roll, no one else gets it. Right? But it's not just the eye roll problem. It's just sarcasm is in general very hard. The third thing is we hear that from our customers all the time. Can you tell us if the agent answered the question correctly? Right, in your QA system or in analytics or something. And I was like, man, that's really hard, because for that, the AI has to know what is the right answer, right? For any given situation, right? And, the right answer could be, in one case, what's the current APR rate for my credit card? The second, for a healthcare situation, is what's the wait time for admitting a patient, and so on. That becomes really hard because now the AI has to know knowledge as well as meaning, right?
Yeah.
You have to have knowledge of what is the home loan rate, what is the mortgage terms, what are the terms? Like if it's an insurance company and it says, like, can the AI help with, was the agent right on insurance terms? Holy shit, that's an 80-page insurance document. They're supposed to understand that and cross-correlate what they're right or not.
Right.
So that's a really hard problem. So those are 3 things. To recap, I would say understanding context and sort of memory over a period of time, right, in long conversations. Because this is a common issue. Our customers say, like, hey, 20-minute call, many things happened here, but my agent can only tag one thing. They often tag one thing. It's like, hey, this issue was about return, right?
Yes, right.
Right. But often there are 3 or 4 things, at least 2.5, 5, 3 things, right? But we can do that, but the order in which it happened and the relationships between those, right? But these are the kind of things we are excited to solve, because if we can solve that, so much value here. The second thing I mentioned is the sarcasm, right? Yeah. Human language and subtleties of it. And the third thing is this issue of doing it in real time, and also knowledge verification. Was the agent right or not? Yeah. And and again, sorry if I'm going into too much detail, but I hope it gives your users a real sense.
I feel, honestly, I think I feel so much more informed on the space now. I really do appreciate you coming on. I mean, we could probably talk here for another 3 hours on things. So we'll probably love to maybe have you come back as well. But Ashish, how can people, if they want to get a hold of you, if they want to get a hold of Level AI, if they want to follow you, what should they do? And we'll end up throwing this up on the screen here, after we kind of do the edits. But how can we get a hold of you?
Absolutely. Find me on LinkedIn. I'm at Ashish my email is just Ashish, ASHISH @thelevel.ai. I'll put it on LinkedIn as well. And then reach out to us if you just want to see a demo of what we do and just get like smart about our offerings. You can go to thelevel.ai, thelevel.ai, thelevel.ai webpage. And then same on LinkedIn and same on Twitter. We are Level AI available everywhere. And then
awesome. Hey,
meet us at CCW. Meet us at
there you
CCW.
Go. Right,
we'll be there as well. Yeah.
Nice. That's oh man, we're 10 days away. Right, 10 days away from
10 days
CCW.
away. Really excited. Yeah, that's a great show. And I saw your post yesterday, Thomas, about having a new kind of conference. Loved it, man. Whatever we can do to support that, happy to do it. And I know you want to keep vendors away. If I can come as an expert, happy to do that. But
and again, I just get annoyed, with in that space when there's so many intelligent people that could add so much value. And again, I'm not blaming, and this wasn't CCW, this was another show, and I don't really want to name them, but when you got to pay them $8,500 to $10,000 to speak at a show that's supposed to be for the contact center community, I don't know. I think that there could be a better way of doing that. And so many people are getting shut out of having a voice.
I'm totally with you. So one thing which we do, Thomas, and I'm happy to pitch that to your users. On Level AI, we have a thought leadership series, and where I've interviewed the VP of Contact Center at Carta, at Brex, at OpenTable, and many other companies, and we don't talk about Level AI at all, not a word of it. And we just ask them kind of what you do, which is how are you running your business, how are you running your operations, and what advice would you have if you grabbed a drink with another leader of contact center? What war stories do you have to share with them over the last 2-3 years as COVID has gone on, right? And we find that so refreshing. And that's why your post meant so much to me. I was like, man, Thomas is so right. All these people have so much nuggets, but we always view them from a lens of like some product to sell or some service or some conference to sell.
You lose people.
We lose people.
Absolutely.
And that's why we don't talk about our product. We talk about what's happening in the space, and what you should expect, and how do we sort of get smart together, right? And then, be on this journey over the next decade together.
Yeah. I mean, and again, we'll wrap this up, but I think people see that, right? Like, and they know that I'm not going to let somebody just come on here and just sell their products. Like, and to be honest, no viewers would be listening because they would get bored in the first 10 seconds. But if we have an AI conversation and a speech analytics conversation, we kind of talk about this. First of all, you can tell you're a total thought leader in the space because of the knowledge that you have with it. And then you can't help but talk about your company a little bit. That's the whole point of this too. So, I think it is refreshing when we're just trying to add value, right? And try to inform, because I learned a ton today in this last, 45 minutes. So I'm sure everybody else did as well. So on that, thank you so much. This was a
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Super informative. And hey, well, I'll see you at CCW.
Awesome. Thanks, Thomas. Have a good one. Bye.